You think the future hasn't happened yet. That's the most natural belief in the world. Tomorrow feels open. Next year feels undecided. You make plans. You change your mind. You imagine different outcomes. The future feels like a blank page waiting for you to write on it. That feeling is persuasive. It is also not something physics agrees with. Because the moment you say the future hasn't happened, you are making a claim about the structure of time itself. You are saying that reality is being created moment by moment, that the past exists, the present is special, and the future is not yet real. That picture feels obvious. It's also wrong, not a little wrong, fundamentally wrong. The confusion starts with how you experience time. You feel yourself moving forward. You remember the past. You don't remember the future. That asymmetry feels like proof that the past exists and the future doesn't. But physics does not define existence by memory. It defines it by structure. And the structure it gives you is not a moving present. It is a four-dimensional object. Let's start with the first thing that has to be thrown away, the idea of a universal now. You think there is a present moment slicing cleanly across the universe, separating what has happened from what has not. It feels so natural that questioning it sounds ridiculous. Relativity destroys it. In Einstein's universe, there is no single present shared by everyone. Two observers moving relative to each other do not agree on what events are happening right now, what you call present. Another observer can call past or future, depending on their motion. This is not philosophy. It is calculation. It is measured. It is unavoidable. That means the idea of a global present is not written into reality. It is written into you. Once that's gone, something profound follows immediately. If there is no universal present, then the distinction between past and future cannot be absolute either. It becomes observer-dependent, local, contextual. This is already enough to break the everyday picture of time. But we usually don't let it. We say fine, simultaneity is relative, but surely the past is still fixed and the future is still open. Physics never says that. In fact, physics never singles out the present as special at all. When you write down the equations of motion for particles, fields, or spacetime itself, they don't evolve a universe from nothing into something. They describe relationships across the entire structure. The math does not march forward. It describes a whole. This is where the block universe picture comes from. And it's not a metaphor invented to sound dramatic. It is the most literal reading of relativity. Space and time together form a four-dimensional spacetime. Every event has coordinates, not just where, but when. And all of those coordinates exist in the same mathematical object. Past, present, and future are not created in sequence. They coexist as parts of the structure. This is the point where people usually panic because they hear the future already exists and immediately translate it into nothing matters or free will is fake. That translation is premature. Before we get there, we need to be clear about what existence means in physics. When physicists say an event exists, they don't mean it has already been experienced by you. They mean it is part of the space-time structure described by the theory. An eclipse in the year 2500 exists in exactly the same sense that a supernova in the year 1000 exists. Both are events with coordinates. The fact that you haven't experienced one of them yet is irrelevant to the theory. This is deeply uncomfortable because it clashes with how you navigate the world. You act as if the future is open because that is how decision-making works from the inside. But physics does not privilege inside perspectives. It describes the outside structure. From the outside, there is no flowing time. There is no cosmic clock ticking from blank to finished. There is a completed spacetime with internal correlations. The future has already happened not because someone decided it, but because already is the wrong word. There is no moment in which the universe is unfinished. There is no master timeline being written line by line. The universe is not a story. It is a geometry. Now let's deal with the most common misunderstanding before it hardens. When people hear the future exists, they imagine something like a movie already filmed. A fixed script. Actors trapped reading lines. That image is seductive and wrong. The block universe is not a prediction. It is not fate in the mythological sense. It is a description of relationships between events. Those relationships include your decisions, your thoughts, your hesitations, your changes of mind. Nothing is removed. Nothing is bypassed. Your choice to turn left instead of right is not erased by the future existing. That choice is part of the space-time structure. It is one of the events that gives the structure its shape. From inside the block, you experience deliberation. From outside the block, that deliberation has coordinates. Both are true. This is where Feynman's way of thinking becomes essential, because he refused to let comforting language sneak back in. He emphasized again and again that physics does not explain why things feel the way they do. It explains what happens. And what happens is this. If two observers do not agree on what events are present, then the notion that only the present exists is untenable. If the laws do not distinguish past from future, then the idea that the future is ontologically incomplete is an addition, not a consequence. The future feels unreal because your brain does not have access to records of it. Memory works one way. Entropy increases. Information spreads. Those facts explain your experience of time. They do not define reality's structure. You mistake epistemology for ontology, what you can know, for what exists. That mistake is natural. It's also catastrophic for understanding time. Once you correct it, the conclusion follows quietly, and without drama. The future has already happened in the same sense that the past has already happened. Both are parts of the space-time structure. Neither is waiting to be created. The shock comes from realizing that waiting was never a physical concept to begin with. Once you accept that the universe does not come with a universal present, the rest of the dominoes fall on their own. You don't have to push them. You just have to stop holding them upright. Think about what it means for two observers to disagree about the order of events. One observer says event A happened before event B. Another says B happened before A. Neither is wrong. Both are using valid clocks and rulers. The laws of physics agree with both descriptions. Now ask yourself a simple question. If reality itself cared about a single, objective flow of time, how could this be allowed? How could the universe tolerate disagreement about what exists right now? It couldn't. The fact that it does tells you something profound. The universe does not evolve in the way you imagine it does. It does not grow from the past into the future. It does not wait. It does not advance. Those are metaphors your mind uses to navigate uncertainty. Physics strips those metaphors away. In the equations, nothing is coming into existence moment by moment. The equations relate entire sets of events. They do not run unless you impose that interpretation on them. They simply are. This is why the block universe idea refuses to go away no matter how uncomfortable it makes people. It is not an optional interpretation. It is the cleanest one, the one with the fewest extra assumptions smuggled in to protect intuition. And now we arrive at the word people avoid as long as possible. Fate. Most people hear, the future already exists, and immediately translate it into, everything is predetermined. That reaction is understandable. It's also sloppy. Predetermined by what? In classical mythology, fate is imposed from outside. Gods. Prophecies. Destinies written in advance. That is not what physics is describing. There is no external author writing the universe's script. The structure of space-time is not a plan, it is a record. The future is not fixed in advance of decisions. It includes the decisions. The fact that an event has coordinates does not mean it occurred without deliberation. It means deliberation itself is an event. This distinction matters more than people realize. Imagine watching a chess game after it has ended. Every move is fixed, the outcome is known, but that does not mean the players were not choosing when they played. From the outside, the game is complete. From the inside, each move involved uncertainty, strategy, hesitation. Space-time is like that, except there is no outside viewer watching the tape play. The universe is the tape. From within it, you experience uncertainty because you do not have access to future records. From the perspective of the structure, Uncertainty is not a property of existence. It is a property of information. This is the part that breaks most people's intuition completely. They confuse not knowing with not existing. You don't know what you'll eat tomorrow. That does not mean tomorrow's lunch does not exist as an event in spacetime. It means you don't have access to it yet. Access is not existence. Physics is ruthless about this distinction. It does not care what you know, it cares what is. Now let's talk about causation, because this is where resistance spikes again. People say if the future already exists, then causes don't cause anything. Effects are already there. Everything is backward. But causation in physics has never worked the way folk intuition says it does. Causes do not create effects out of nothing. They correlate events across space-time in lawful ways. When you strike a match and it lights, you say the striking caused the flame. Physics says there is a lawful relationship between certain configurations of atoms, energy barriers, and reaction pathways. The flame does not pop into existence because time moved forward. It appears because the configuration allowed it. That relationship exists regardless of whether you describe it forward or backward in time. The equations don't care. They work both ways. This is why causal language starts to sound suspicious once you take relativity seriously. Cause and effect are not fundamental arrows etched into time. They are patterns we extract from regularities. In a block universe, causes do not push effects into being. They are part of a consistent network of relations. The future is not caused by the past in the way you imagine. Both are constrained together. That constraint feels like fate only if you insist on imagining time as a production line. Stop doing that, and the sense of fatalism dissolves. You still choose. You still deliberate. You still act. Those processes are not erased. They are located. And here's the part almost no one says out loud. The idea that the future is open was never a physical claim. It was a psychological one. It describes how decision-making feels from the inside, not how the universe is structured from the outside. Physics does not promise openness. It promises consistency. Once you internalize that, the phrase, "the future has already happened," loses its melodrama. It stops sounding like doom and starts sounding like geometry. There is no cosmic hand forcing events into place. There is no destiny engine. There is just a space-time structure in which every event has relationships to every other. Your life is not being dictated by the future. Your life is one of the things that gives the future its shape. The discomfort comes from wanting reality to be under construction, to be waiting for you. But physics has never described reality that way. That was always a story we told ourselves because it matched how memory works. Memory points backward. Anticipation points forward. Reality does neither. It just is. By now, you may feel a kind of resistance that's hard to name. Not confusion, not disbelief. Something closer to vertigo. The sense that if you accept what the physics is saying, you lose your footing. That's normal. It happens every time intuition collides with structure. What's happening is that you're being asked to give up a picture that quietly organized everything else. The picture where time is a process that unfolds, where the present is special, and where the future waits politely until you arrive. Physics does not contain that picture. It never did. Once you stop trying to smuggle it back in, the implications line up cleanly. If there is no universal present, then reality is not being assembled moment by moment. If the laws do not distinguish past from future, then existence does not depend on now. If spacetime is a four-dimensional structure, then events are not created in sequence. They are related. This is the moment where people often reach for quantum mechanics, hoping it will rescue uncertainty and restore openness. They say quantum randomness means the future isn't fixed. Indeterminacy saves us. But quantum mechanics does not do what they want it to do. Quantum theory introduces probabilities, not incompleteness of existence. It tells you that outcomes are not predictable with certainty from the past alone. It does not tell you that the future is unreal until observed. In fact, many formulations of quantum mechanics fit perfectly comfortably inside a block universe. The probabilities are part of the structure. The outcomes are events with coordinates. The uncertainty reflects what observers inside the block can know, not what exists. Again, the same mistake appears. Confusing knowledge with ontology. You don't know which outcome will occur. That does not mean the outcome does not exist as an event in spacetime. It means you don't have access to it yet. Even interpretations that emphasize branching do not restore a moving present. They replace one fixed future with many fixed futures. The structure grows more elaborate, not more open. So quantum mechanics does not rescue the old picture. It finishes dismantling it. At this point, the idea that the future has already happened should stop sounding mystical. It should sound almost boring. It is simply what you get when you take relativity seriously, and refuse to add extra assumptions for emotional comfort. The universe is not waiting for you. That sentence sounds harsh until you realize what it does not say. It does not say you don't matter. It does not say your actions are irrelevant. It does not say your choices are illusions. It says the universe does not organize itself around your point of view. Your point of view is local, temporary, biological. Physics describes the whole. From the whole, your life is a world line, a continuous path through space-time. Along that path, you think, hesitate, decide, act, regret, change. None of that is skipped. None of it is overridden. It is all there. From outside the path, the entire line exists. From inside the path, you experience it one moment at a time. Both descriptions are correct. They answer different questions. This is the part people miss. The block universe does not erase becoming. It explains it. Becoming is what it feels like to move along a world line without access to future information. The sensation of time passing is the sensation of incomplete information. It is not evidence that the future is unreal. It is evidence that you are embedded. Once you see that, fate stops looking like a sentence imposed from above and starts looking like a misunderstanding about perspective. You are not trapped by the future. You are part of it. And that brings us to the deepest shift of all. The one that almost never gets stated plainly. The belief that the future has not happened yet was never a scientific claim. It was a psychological necessity. It allowed planning to feel meaningful. It allowed regret to make sense. It allowed hope to function. Physics does not take those things away. It reframes them. Hope is not about creating the future. It is about not knowing it. Regret is not about wishing reality were different. It is about learning from information you now possess. Planning is not about writing an unwritten script. It is about navigating uncertainty from within a structure you cannot see all at once. None of that breaks. What breaks is the idea that the universe itself is unfinished. The universe is not under construction. It is complete in the only sense physics ever uses that word. Complete as a structure, not complete as a story. Stories require a narrator moving through time. The universe does not narrate itself. This is why Feynman was always impatient with questions that smuggled human expectations into fundamental physics. He understood that the hardest part of learning physics is not the equations. It is unlearning the pictures that feel obvious but aren't. Time is the hardest of all because you never step outside it. You never get a God's eye view. You only ever experience slices. But physics gives you the view you cannot experience directly. And when it does, the conclusion is not negotiable. The future is not waiting to happen. It is not hidden in potential. It is not hovering in some unreal state. It exists as a set of relations in space-time, just as the past does. The shock is not that this sounds cold. The shock is that it sounds cold only because you expected reality to be warm. Physics never promised that. And once you accept that, the phrase, "the future has already happened," stops sounding like a threat and starts sounding like what it really is, a description. There is one last misunderstanding that has to be removed, because it sneaks back in even after everything else has been stripped away. The idea that if the future exists, then nothing can be changed, that once something is there, it is locked, frozen, immune to influence. This idea comes from imagining the future as a place you arrive at, rather than something you participate in. Physics does not describe the future as a destination. It describes it as a set of correlations. Your actions are not modifications to a finished object. They are part of the object. When you decide to speak or stay silent, that decision is not an afterthought layered onto spacetime. It is one of the events that gives spacetime its structure. The future includes your indecision, your hesitation, your mistakes, your revisions. Nothing is skipped. Nothing is overwritten. From within your experience, the future feels open because you do not know what you will do. That ignorance is real. It matters. It guides behavior. But ignorance is not absence. This is where the emotional resistance finally dissolves. If you let it, you realize that the fear was never about determinism. It was about significance, about whether actions still matter if they are already part of the structure. They do. For the same reason moves matter in a chess game even when the game has been recorded. Meaning does not require indeterminacy. It requires participation. Physics does not remove participation. It removes privilege. It removes the idea that your moment in time is the moment the universe is waiting for. It removes the fantasy that reality pauses until you decide. It removes the belief that the present is the axis around which existence turns. What it leaves behind is something more demanding. A universe in which your choices matter because they are real events, not because they summon reality into being. The future has already happened in the same sense that your entire life already exists as a world line, not as a judgment, not as a sentence, as a fact of structure. You will still wake up tomorrow without knowing how the day will go. You will still deliberate. You will still hope. You will still regret. None of that is threatened by the block universe. It is explained by it. The experience of becoming is not an illusion. It is the internal view of a being embedded in spacetime with limited information. From the inside, time feels like a process. From the outside, time is a dimension. Both descriptions are true. They answer different questions. The mistake was ever thinking one had to cancel the other. Once you stop asking physics to preserve your intuition and let it describe reality on its own terms, the conclusion stops being shocking. There is no moving spotlight of the present sweeping through the universe. There is no unfinished future waiting off stage. There is no cosmic editor deciding what gets written next. There is a spacetime structure containing every event, including your thoughts about this very sentence. The future is not unreal. It is just inaccessible, and that difference changes everything. You don't live in a universe that is being written. You live in a universe that is being experienced locally, one slice at a time, by creatures who can only remember in one direction. That limitation is not a flaw in reality. It is a feature of being inside it. The future has already happened, not because fate demands it, but because time does not work the way you were taught to imagine it. It never did. The real revelation is not that the universe is fixed. It's that the universe was never obligated to match the story your intuition told you about how time should behave. And once you accept that, you stop fighting the structure and start understanding it. That is what physics offers. Not comfort, not reassurance, but clarity.